monitors, from their supervisors, but at the board level of the media company, they did not receive the support that they required. And then lastly, we have the judiciary as an institution. The judiciary plays a key role towards propagating and the criminalization of criminal defamation under the penal code, as well as just providing, I'd say, 84% of respondents believe that there were injustices in the judiciary, and this then entrenched SLAPP. So which laws are these that we currently have that for Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act? Under Section 22 and Section 23, you'll find that there are specific crimes which are quite vague, which speak about publication of false information and yet the intention for these particular crimes are quite high and can't be met in court, and this has been used severally to institute SLAPP in court. Then we have the Court Act, that is between 2010 and 2015, and this was amended. So the amendments in this particular act have been used to institute civility, and so there need to be amendments on that. Then we have the Defamation Act. The Defamation Act, I'd say, is the most popular act that has been used on this. Specifically, between Section 3 and Section 5, you have legislation that speaks to slander, but it is quite vague, as well as the levels of compensation that Grace mentioned earlier is quite high, and also at the discretion of the court, which then has an impact on these people. So it's not really that these individuals who are instituting the suits want anything, they just want to waste the time of these people or just waste their resources. So it can be Financial Newspapers Act as well, which has sections that ensure that media companies comply by providing publications of each particular new, I'd say, newspaper or publication after 14 days following the publication, which then in terms of recommendations that we will be able to give to each of these actors, if we first start with the media actors in the room. So for the Media Council and owners, we have training of employees to avoid publication of the Defamation Act, but not within the problematic section that I've mentioned before. And again, is establishing appropriate mechanisms to safeguard employees from manipulation. So these are internal mechanisms to develop laws on media and expression. And this is one such dialogue where we will be able to have these conversations. So make a lot on sensitization for the employees and for the companies themselves. Reviewing the laws, and they do this through the jurisprudence, the very progressive jurisprudence, as well as retraining judicial officers to effectively handle defamation cases. Another recommendation would be the use of mediation, which I think this case is fast, and then you can be able to know whether this case will actually proceed to litigation. Then for human rights defenders, civil society organizations, we have the call to just keep pushing, to keep advocating to end this sort of frivolous charges, and then to raise awareness in partnership with media and stakeholders, such as Parliament in the room. And then lastly, for Parliament, it is very relevant because we do have the ICT committee in the room. It is to review laws. So first,
No, just let's talk about public participation. Ungesema tu tusipite, ungesema hivyo ziko we okay. Okay. Are we good? Are we set? Yes. Thank you very much. My name is Gitonga Mokonji, Member of Parliament, Manyata constituency, and also the Chairman, Young Members of Parliament. We are here today with an engagement of Mzalendo Trusts and other stakeholders on matters to do with defending the freedom of expression and the right for public participation as enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. And we are here to look at a report that has been carried out and to see areas that require legislative attention so that we can be able to bring it in the floor of the House. We have a commitment as young members of Parliament to ensure we defend by all means necessary the right of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and the right to information that is supposed to be enshrined and protected by the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. And we want to commend the people of Kenya for their outspokenness and ensuring that they don't keep quiet when things are going right and when things are going wrong. And I believe that is one of the things that this parliament must always protect. There has been, of course, advances to gag media, to gag people from speaking outrightly what is in their minds. But we want to promise the people of Kenya that we are going to continue defending that right, which is a right that has come from very far. I mean, we are talking of ages of the Moi era where nobody could have spoken about anything. But I want to say that there has been advances of late of government trying to extend that part of gag, but it has to be protected by all means necessary. And I believe we have come into a conclusion that one of the bills that really we have to push is the public participation bill that is already going on in the floor of the House. We also have whistleblowers bill. Those are bills that are trying to actually empower people to speak out when things are not going right. And those bills have been embraced by the young members of parliament to ensure that they are among the people that are pushing the bills to get to the very end so that this nation can be better and can be, we can be obeying our constitution in the right way. Of course, from what happened last year in the Finance Bill 2024, the misinformation, the information, we also want to say and call upon the media to be very outright and very fair and factual on their reporting, because it's important while we are providing that platform of freedom of expression, it is important also it should not be misused, and it should not be misused in a way that it is even would bring problems in the governance of this nation. And of course, that does not mean that even with the misuse, we should not defend it. It must be defended, and we have to continue ensuring that the House of Parliament is seen to defend the freedom of expression. Thank you very much.
And maybe as parliamentarians, what are you doing maybe to enhance this freedom of expression? Because we have seen an increase maybe attack on media.
Well, as I've told you, number one is what is in the floor of the House, the issues of public participation. We have a bill on the way. We also have a bill on whistleblower protection bill. And all these bills are leading towards protecting that part of expression of information and also access to information. But of course, responsibility, as it were today, is there are already bills and laws that have already passed the House that actually seek to ensure there is soberness when it comes to freedom of expression. There is a cyber crime and misuse laws that have been passed, which are very lethal to people who are spreading misinformation. I believe it is important to say clearly that we want the law to always be followed when it comes to issues of misuse of information, misuse of social media, misuse of media spaces, but let there be law being followed, but there should not be extrajudicial ways of doing the gagging, and that is what we are going to protect and ensure it is not happening in this nation.
Maybe lastly, there's an issue with the Ngcdf, which has threatened to cripple operations in the county.
Yes.
I don't know, is there any what the government can do right now to make sure that funds are...
This nation has always tried to reinvent the wheel. Anybody in this nation knows that Ngcdf is a fund that works for the people. There is no person, including the governors themselves, are in agreement that they can see the work being done by Ngcdf. It is a shame to see Raila Odinga in the glare media, talking about banning of a fund that is actually changing the people, even people in Kibera, that were left with nothing when he was in power. But I would say that there is no contradiction whatsoever on what Ngcdf does and what county government is supposed to do. It is very clear to everybody. There are already devolved functions under county government, health, which are one of the most problematic issues that we are handling in our areas. But I would say Ngcdf must be protected by all means. And we have to actually put it in the constitution to ensure it is well protected, because that fund works for the people. It is very clear that what it is doing on education sector, the CBC rollout, would have totally been chaotic if it was not for Ngcdf. If I were to speak on my constituency currently, all my schools that have CBC programs and JSS programs, they already have laboratories within a year. And that means that those are funds that need to be protected. And I really condemn the pronunciations by Raila Odinga on matters to do with Ngcdf.
And just one for me, they are those pushing for harmonization of these, let's say, scholarships. Different, we get from the MCAs, MPs, we have one from the governors, national government. What's your opinion about that?
We can have that conversation, but the conversation must not be held on what works. We cannot be scrubbing things that work and bringing other new ideas. What works is supposed to be supported, then we can improve on it instead of starting again from zero. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Teach MP for Marakwet West. This morning we've held a conversation on the freedom of the media led by Mzalendo. Now, what I want to say is that we have a very progressive constitution in this country. And we have an obligation to protect that constitution. And Article 3 of the Constitution provides that every person in this country has a right to protect, defend, and uphold the Constitution. Whereas we have freedom of the media, we also say that that freedom must be exercised responsibly. However, we've seen efforts to we've seen that media space is shrinking in this country, and it's something that we must be worried as a country, so that media freedom is not taken away from the media. So what we are saying is that we must protect the media. That space is shrinking, and therefore, as members of Parliament, what we are saying is, today as we speak, Parliament has almost lost its oversight mandate. The bodies performing oversight in this country are the media and the NGOs. And it's unfortunate because the oversight role of Parliament has been compromised by the executive. And therefore, it is our opinion that the freedom of the media must be protected in this country, so that the people of this country can share their views without any fear that they'll be harassed or intimidated. Secondly, there is a new emerging trend of parliamentary harassment that we've seen, that members of Parliament who have alternative views, who don't hold views similar to that of the executive, are being harassed. It is something that as members of Parliament, we condemn. And members of Parliament are elected to perform three key roles: oversight, representation, and legislation. And therefore, when a member of Parliament makes certain expressions at the floor of the House, it is for and on behalf of the people who brought them to Parliament. So that at some point, you find that members of Parliament are intimidated, are harassed, are de-whipped from committees for expressing their views. As a member of Parliament, I think that is unfortunate, it is regrettable, and it is something that, as a country, we must sit down and reflect as to what was the purpose of Parliament in this country. Because if the Parliament works under the directives or the direction of the executive, then we will lose our Parliament, which is something very unfortunate. Yeah. Now, on matters of CDF, we had the former Prime Minister saying that CDF should be collapsed. I think that is an unfortunate remark that as Parliament, we condemn it in the strongest of terms possible. If there is a fund that is working in this country, it is the CDF. Someone is suggesting that CDF be taken to counties. The question we ask is how? One, the full schedule of the Constitution in this country has given the mandate of the national government and the county government. How is it possible to transfer funds that are meant for CDF to perform and functions not assigned to it by the Constitution? So it is a sentiment that, as members of Parliament, we condemn and we do not agree with it.
Yes. Yeah, my name is Robert Basil, yet a member of Parliament and Vice Chair for Young Parliamentarians. Just to weigh in on what my friends have said, one, we want to emphasize on responsible journalism, and also for members of public, it's important not to misuse the freedom of expression. We have seen a situation whereby people are peddling insults through social media. So it's important we responsibly express our views. When it comes to Ngcdf, just as my friends have said, it is extremely unacceptable and also regrettable for someone we have respected so much, His Excellency, the former Prime Minister. Because for him to come out outrightly and say Ngcdf should actually be scrapped, this is completely watering the gains previous members of Parliament have advanced to bring equity, equality, and to advance development uniformly. If you look at our country, our budget is never itemized. And because of ethnicization, which has taken place when it comes to distribution of resources, we have seen some areas where resources have been extremely pumped to certain areas at the expense of other areas. And that's why when you look at Ngcdf, it is the only hope, particularly for the marginalized. When it comes to education, most of the poor learners, the only lifeline they have to education is Ngcdf. So anyone trying to wash away or to completely take it out, it's someone who doesn't seem to resonate with the reality, and someone who doesn't understand the level of disparity that has existed in this country. So, Honorable former Prime Minister, we respect you, but it is important to acknowledge that most of the poor are depending on Ngcdf for them to be able to access learning, at the same time to have uniformity when it comes to school infrastructure development. So therefore, it's important, as much as we want to talk, to please certain quarters, let's do it responsibly and understand that this country belongs to all of us. And as patriots, let's understand that Kenyans are watching upon us to be able to serve them fairly. When it comes to issues about what we have been discussing today, as much as we also want to protect media freedom, we also encouraging the members of the state, at least to be virtual when it comes to reporting, so that they can build credibility and boost trust when it comes to members of public trusting the different sources of information. Thank you.